So I'm going to do that rustling now. And remember there's going to be a Q&A after. So think of your questions now. And I'm going to keep it short and move it along to Bill Press and Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro.
Thank you.
Laura, okay.
How are you?
Good evening. Let's see. We'll test the mics. Be sure they're working. Congresswoman, your mic?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoa. Yes. Yeah. It's working. It's working.
Definitely on. Not sure
It's
we
on.
need it, but we've got it.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see you, and thanks so much for coming out on a rainy evening for a very special evening with one of my favorite members of Congress and a good friend and a neighbor who lives on the Hill,
Yeah.
very active on the Hill, and a very important member of the Congress. She is the chair of the Appropriations Committee subcommittee on health, labor, and labor, health, and education. And actually, almost all the important issues that we care about, jobs and trade and health and women's issues, Rosa DeLauro is a leader and a fighter and a great person, great leader, and great person to have on your side. So it's fun to have you here tonight, yeah. Congresswoman. You honor us by coming. Thanks so much.
Well, I'm delighted to be here with you. Thank you so much.
It's good to see you. You know, things are so grim these days. Tell us some good news.
Oh, gosh. No.
Good news for us tonight.
Yes. My God. Come on. You know, look, I would just say this, and I guess it's, you know, in a very partisan way, elections have consequences. And we are in the majority in the House of Representatives. That is something to cheer for. My God. You know, and unfortunately, Bill, I just started to talk to you about this. I don't want to say unfortunately. Look, the TV, most of the shows, everything, the media is focused in on 2 or 3 issues. Important issues. Please don't misunderstand me. But you know, you've got Russia, you've got Mueller, whatever the tweet of the day is. You know, that's out there. But I cannot tell you about the activity that is going on in the House of Representatives. It really is. It's energizing. All of the committees. I'll speak about my committee, and you need to understand that. It's part of the Appropriations Committee, but after Defense and Defense Appropriations, the Labor, Health, Education Subcommittee is the largest portfolio of programming, and it affects everyone's life. We are 1/3 of the non-defense discretionary spending at the federal level. Mm-hmm. So it is an enormous portfolio. And to have the gavel is really pretty extraordinary. I just quickly, we have been able to hold so far 8 hearings. We did one on the effect of the administration's policies on the Affordable Care Act. We did one. We have the jurisdiction over unaccompanied children, not the separation because that's Department of Homeland Security, but unaccompanied children come under our jurisdiction. So we did a hearing on unaccompanied children. Heartbreaking. I mean, I'll answer questions later, but we'll talk more about that. We've done 2 on education, one on what I call the predatory for-profit colleges, which have been ripping people off, particularly our veterans. We also have the FSA, the financial student aid department, and the awful work of the loan servicers that are dealing with the loans that our youngsters take out, etc., and are putting them at great risk. We did the first hearing in 20 years on gun violence research prevention. 20 years. And can I just tell you, because it goes in with goodness. I was asked by a reporter. We finished the hearing. We're going to the floor of the House to vote, and a reporter says to me, "Congresswoman DeLauro, are you going to put money in the bill for the research on gun violence prevention?" I said, "Absolutely, we're going to put the money in the bill." And she then said to me, "Well, how can you do that?" Now, what I didn't say to her in response, Bill, but I'll say it here tonight, and I said this to myself, because I'm the chair of the committee. That's why. That's how I can do it. And that gives you, we've had budget hearings. Tomorrow we have Secretary Acosta. Last week we had Secretary DeVos. We had Secretary DeVos last week, and then Secretary Azar. So your point is, there is so much happening. That's just my committee. Every committee, and it's positive. We passed on the floor of the House equal pay for equal work last week. That means men and women in the same job deserve the same pay. We've done the bill on dark money and getting money out of politics and conflict of interest. We've done background checks, universal background checks. So please do not get dispirited. We are moving and we are getting things done.
Now the Congresswoman has just talked about everything I was going to ask.
That's my problem.
Well, one change is that's very exciting. You got a very rambunctious freshman class.
Oh yes.
So one often wonders, are you teaching them or are they teaching you, or how's it?
Yeah, listen, but it's kind of like a combination. Now, I don't recall, though I know, and I used to work for Senator Dodd when he was elected in 74. And that was the class that came in after Watergate. It was George Miller, it was Toby Moffett, it was Chris Dodd, George Miller, etc. And they were, the Young Turks who were making changes in the institution, and changes for the better. Look, for the first time, we have over 100 women in the House of Representatives, which is pretty extraordinary. And we are such a diverse caucus. Yes, we have Muslim women, we have Native American women, LGBT, and so it is really, there is not only diversity, but there's energy. Mm-hmm. And my view of this is, when I say harness the energy, let's take it on. People have good ideas, bold ideas, which we can share. I can talk about my experience. Somebody would say, hey, look, this last tranche, it took me 10 years to get this bill on the floor because we got into the majority. I know people who have come new don't want to wait 10 years, but the institution works like that. So there's some learning that they have to do, and from us about how to navigate the system to get done what you want to get done. And so it really is very exciting. And I'm excited about it. And bold ideas, new ideas. That's good.
You are much too modest when you just slipped by the equal pay legislation. Let's let everyone know. This is the Paycheck Fairness Act, which passed last week, sponsored by, written by, carried by Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro. And today is Equal Pay Day. What a day to celebrate. Right. And Speaker Pelosi today actually called the Congresswoman the godmother of paycheck fairness. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But
so why is it's hard to believe this is still an issue? I thought Lilly Ledbetter fixed this.
No, you see, that is it. First of all, and this piece of legislation, which is a very simple construct, men and women in the same job deserve the same pay. That's it. That's true for members of Congress. We have different skill sets, different educational backgrounds. We come from different parts of the country. We are paid the same. In the military, that is true as well. But it is not true for pretty much any other profession. And whether you're a soccer player, a waitress, a university professor, a news anchor, an engineer, a star of stage, screen, and television. We had Michelle Williams with us today for Equal Pay Day. So that is what we did. I introduced it in 1997. We were in the minority. When we took the majority in 2006, we then, George Miller chaired the Education and Labor Committee, and George drove it through the committee, got it to the floor of the House. We won. We won at the same time. We were connected with Lilly Ledbetter. Lilly Ledbetter was the Fair Pay Act. What did that do? It, in essence, opened the courts because she was told that she would have had to talk about the discrimination long before she even knew about it. So so what the bill did was is that from your last paycheck, you then could talk about discrimination. She lost at the Supreme Court, as you all know, but then through the Congress, we did the Lilly Ledbetter Pay Act, which just went back to what the process was in the past in terms of speaking up on discrimination. But what we did not do is to do anything about strengthening the 1963 Equal Pay Act. By the way, equal pay has been supported by Dwight Eisenhower, by John Kennedy, so presidents from both parties. So, and what the Paycheck Fairness is simply, you are not prohibited, either a man or a woman, from speaking with your colleagues on the job about what your salary is. Secondly, you can't use salary history because women are paid 80 cents on the dollar on average. So they can't use your salary to determine, what they are going to pay you. Yes, there is a right to sue, a class action, and the damages are uncapped. I'm going to go back to Lilly Ledbetter. Lilly Ledbetter was awarded by the courts $3.8 million for discrimination. She would not have been able to, she would only have been able to get $300,000 because Title VII caps the amount of damages. When it went to the Supreme Court and she lost, she got nothing at all. If we had had paycheck fairness in place, Lilly would have, and it's really, she's just such a hero. Long and the short of it, so we come back, we get it passed twice, goes to the Senate, and the Senate had 58 votes. They were supposed to go in tandem, the two bills. I know it's more than you want to know, but they were supposed to go in tandem. Ledbetter, because that's the way they passed on the floor of the House. That was separated out in the Senate. Many very heated conversations with some of my Senate colleagues and the White House about that. Nevertheless, they prevailed, and we lost by 2 votes. Olympia Snowe, Susan Collins voted against paycheck fairness.
Whoa. Today
it would be the law of the land. Okay? Fast forward, we lose the election. Again, 10 years before we now win. Bobby Scott chairs Education and Labor, gets it through the committee, gets it through the floor of the House, 242 to 187, with 7 Republicans voting for us. Today, they started to take it up in the Senate. Patty Murray was on the floor, Chuck Schumer, etc. So it has been, as I've said, it has been difficult to get through. But I believe that now the environment and the issue have collided, in which we can now, I believe, we can move forward.
One little footnote: the discrimination in wages is even worse with women of color.
Oh my God,
correct?
Women of
you said 80 cents, but
80 cents. You're absolutely right. It's like about 63 cents for African American women, and it's about 55 cents or 54 cents for Latinas. And also you have to think about it in terms of retirement security. Women are paid less. Sorry, gentlemen, women live longer. So you look at the highest, the demographic where you have the most poor are women over 65 or 70 years old, because they, and then their Social Security, which is based on your wages, you fall short and unable to, to really, so you are in retirement, but with very little in terms of a fixed income to be able to live on. It has enormous ramifications. And, its time has come. Its time has come for us to do it. So.
Just so you don't get the idea that the Congresswoman is in any way a one-trick pony, she's not only leading on women's health care and the paycheck issue, but also on attempts to fix the Affordable Care Act,
right.
Make it stronger, make it better, and your legislation, Medicare for
Medicare
all.
Medicare for America.
Medicare for America.
For all,
I'm sorry.
Medicare
right.
for America.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm a strong
supporter. What does that mean? Because we hear
right.
this phrase, Medicare for all, Medicare for
sure.
I mean, there's a lot of variations on the theme,
yeah.
right? And people are approaching it a little differently. What do you think is the answer?
Sure. Well, look, first of all, I've fought very, very hard for the Affordable Care Act. You know, I've been in the House now 29 years, so it was just several years ago when we passed it. It probably was one of the most important votes I've ever cast as a member of the House. It's transformative, and particularly for women, which really put women's health on a par with men's health for the very, very first time. Consequences of the Affordable Care Act are, you know, what we've seen with high deductibles, high premiums, and some very serious issues. We couldn't get a public option at that time, which so many of us wanted to try to get. So, and immediately, because I want to say this, I think it's important in the short term for us to keep the president and our Republican colleagues from dismantling the Affordable Care Act. Keep in mind that I would bet dollars to donuts that there was no one in this room who believed that we would be able to win legislatively on the issue of repeal and replace when that first started. Everyone thought that that was what's going to happen. But we won. Primarily, people with a pre-existing condition. I have a pre-existing condition. I'm an ovarian cancer survivor, some 30 years ago. But people for the first time were able to get their insurance with the Affordable Care Act. Medicaid became very critical and important for families. So they couldn't defeat it. So what they've done is to come around through the appropriations process, and so much of it comes through my subcommittee. So that's where they're trying to go. In the short term, and where the president has talked about, you know, joining the court case in Texas, which would dismantle the Affordable Care Act, and that would mean that the millions of people who have their health insurance with pre-existing condition, that would be lost. So my point is, we have to, in the short term, do some things which we have done. There was a bill introduced the past couple of weeks, which deals with some of the issues that have to do with the Affordable Care Act. That being said, my view is that we need a path to universal health care. That's where I think we have to go. And which is what is exciting, and what folks want to say is, oh my God, tear your hair out. Look, there are a number of iterations to get to universal health care. You've got several models. You have Medicare for all, you have Medicare for America, you have buy-in plans, you have a number, which is, that's in and of itself exciting. Who just a few years ago would have thought about, we're trying to move to universal health care here. And Medicare for America, what it does is begins to enroll at birth into Medicare. We include long-term care, disabilities, much expanded benefits, including dental, hearing, etc. Some of those things that are not included at this juncture. I won't go into all the details, but the other piece of it is that there are 155 million people today who get their insurance through their employer. So there is employer-sponsored insurance, because that is not something that overnight you're going to be able to just remove. People are comfortable, but what we do say is, if you want to opt in to Medicaid for America, you can do that. If your employer wants to take his employees or her employees and put them in, they will do that. They will pay 8% into the trust fund for for their employees. So it is two parts of the system, which and what we would do on the Medicare side is take in Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, and again, as I say, there's auto enrollment there, so that we begin to create the system in which everyone becomes insured. And in that case, we also cap. There's no deductibles, sliding scale under 200% of federal poverty level. There are no costs. 200 to 600%. There's sliding scale, and there's a cap after 600. Out-of-pocket costs are capped at $3,000 or $3,500, etc. So.
Is part of the fix for Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act doing something about the price of prescription drugs?
Well, yeah, we take that on in my bill. A drug review board, the ability to negotiate, which we're now prohibited from doing. And I say a drug review board, that if you're going to raise the price, you've got to come before the board to do that. So it's very stringent on the pharmaceutical industry, because that really is an unbelievable cost driver. Now, I know that there are also going to be other, my colleague Lloyd Doggett has a prescription drug legislation, several others do as well. But we have it as an integral part of Medicare for America.
Right. As Laura mentioned at the top, the program, there are a lot of regulars here, I know. Our conversation will continue for a few more minutes and then open up to you for questions on anything we have touched on or haven't touched on, so you can get those ready. So Congresswoman, you mentioned earlier something about these freshmen. A lot of them have big new ideas, bold ideas. One of them is, and what's your take on the Green New Deal?
Hey, I signed on to the Green New Deal. Are all of the pieces, all of the parts fleshed out? Is it all? No, it's not. But what is this? It's that we have to take on one of the most important issues of the day. That's climate change. Climate change caused by humans, and that we have to do something. We know what they're telling us about, how much time we have left. We also know that there are green new jobs, and that you can create green new jobs, which is why, in terms of infrastructure, we have, opportunity for a green bank where we're creating, green new jobs. So did we say, when John Kennedy said that we were going to go to the moon in 10 years with an idea, did we have all the little pieces in place, the T's crossed, the I's dotted? No. But we will get but that's bold. That's new. Why not think about how we can move forward in these directions? Let's not be afraid of ideas. And what I have said, because look, I would tell you honestly, like the Medicare for all people, some of them get very angry at me. Actually, some of them in the last election said that they were going to primary me because I wasn't signed on to the legislation. Let's not be adversarial. We're at a good point, so that we can try to sort these out, have a vigorous debate about them, and then come to some kind of conclusion. Now, you also, look, if you're a member of a legislature, you do have to learn to compromise. You don't get every single thing you ever wanted. Now, if you can't do that, then you're in a tough spot. You really are, because then I don't care what legislature you belong to, but let's have the debate around these very, very serious issues that we face as a nation, the challenges that we face.
You, in talking about all the things that you've accomplished, and we haven't talked about H.R. 1 yet, maybe we'll get some questions on that, the gun safety measure you mentioned, the Medicare for All, the Paycheck Fairness Act. Some people I've heard, even some Democrats say, that you're just wasting your time because none of this has a snowball's chance of getting through the Senate. What do you tell those people?
the hell, God. I mean, you know. And for that matter, then why don't we just fold the tent, go home, and do nothing? Yeah. Hello? You know? I tell you, yeah. But, you know, and I just say this to everyone here and around the country. You think about how things changed last year. It wasn't because of members of Congress, House or Senate. It was the country that was motivated, galvanized, it was on its feet, it marched, it made calls, it visited his office. It was, you know, high school kids on the march and so forth to say, this is where we want our country to go. This is what we are about. And the result of that was a very exciting election, which has the opportunity now for us to help to make some serious changes in a direction that the nation would like us to go in. Not us, the nation would like us to go in. You know, and so why not get it passed, get it to the Senate, and fight it out? That's what my view is. The fight and the country understanding that fight and engaging in it. You know, that kind of, you know as well as I do, you've been dealing with the institution for a very long time. A lot of well-meaning people inside want to do good things, get to do some good things, but the way the institution moves is the external pressure on it. You are the external pressure, people in this country. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work with the groups to put pressure on the Senate. You know, to say you got to move on paycheck fairness. That's what we have to do. You can't see the field. You can't just say, I'm going home, I'm going to take the ball and go home.
So 2 or 3 issues, rapid fire issues here. And let's just see where we come out on these. Are we ever going to see the Mueller report?
I believe we will. I do. I think the Mueller report will get out. It should get out. I think we should not be held to a 4-page summary by the Attorney General, who was handpicked for his, you know, June 2018 memo that said the, you know, president could not be charged, etc. I don't think, you said rapid fire. I believe it's going to go out, and you know, look, if it doesn't get out, I believe today or tomorrow, the Judiciary Committee is if it isn't in tonight, that there will be a subpoena, you know, to subpoena the report. So there we are.
One way or the other.
One way or the other.
All right.
Mm-hmm. The Pentagon Papers got out many years ago as well, as we know.
So did the Ken Starr report, as we remember.
Yes.
The Electoral College, time to get rid of it?
Oh, God, Jesus. It's, you know, I'm just going to tell you, you know what? You know, I'm usually forthright and tell you where I am. I don't have an answer to that yet. I need to take a look at that and see what makes sense there. Look, I understand the popular vote. I understand, you know what happened, but I really do want to take a hard look and whether or not to see what if that makes sense. It seems to, but that's where I am at the moment.
All right,
I want to be honest with you. So.
That's fair. How about expanding the Supreme Court to adding a couple of members to the Supreme Court? I think the plan that some Democrats have talked about.
Yeah,
we win in 2020, we'll put 2 more people on the Supreme Court to balance out Kavanaugh and Gorsuch.
What happened to Franklin Roosevelt when he tried to? I'm just looking historically on that. Look, that's the one area where I really do.
There seems no doubt that if Democrats do that, then the next Republican president.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're then looking at packing the court. You're doing this. It's a whole other debate. Or the issue, though, I mean, that troubles me very, very, very much as to the direction.
Right. So the easy one. There are, the last time I checked, 16 Democrats running for president in 2020.
I haven't.
Who's your pick?
I have not selected anyone. I'm going to wait for the debates. You know, I am going to wait for the debates. I think we've got some very competent candidates who are out there, who are, you know, will talking about real policy issues, and you know, you don't have so much integrity in the process. You know, people that I admire, and you know, I just say this, and there are people who understand why they came to serve. We have a lot of people who, you know, do not know why they came to the Congress to serve. When I think about that, I think about the Teddy Kennedys, I think about the Harkins, the Dodds, and others, and the Javits and so forth. Look, you know, I did the book, The Least Among Us, Waging the Battle for the Vulnerable, which was about the social safety net. Hi, Kevin, how are you tonight? Good to see you. Kevin used to work for me. Yeah. What I found when we examined the social safety net was that, and that is, you know, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, refundable tax credits, food stamps, unemployment insurance, that it was Democrats and Republicans who crafted the legislation because they recognized the challenge that we had in this country. And they came together and they compromised on trying to move forward. And I think that that's a place where we need to get to again.
And do you fear, as some people do, that or say that warn that Democrats, that the party may have moved too far to the left?
I love this question. I really do. Yes, I do. You know what? Had I been Kamala Harris when the reporter said to her, "Are you a socialist?" I would have said, "This is an absurd question. It's an absurd question." And you know what? As Democrats, we should not fall into the trap where some of the media would like to pit us against one another. And you know what? Look, I'm going to tell you honestly, I don't think I have told her. When Alexandria defeated Joe Crowley, I took a look at what she ran on, the issues she ran on. And I still have it. I have it on my desk. And it was on infrastructure and jobs. It was on getting troops out of Afghanistan. It was about the environment and, green energy. It was on, she was there for Medicare for All. That was her route to universal health care. But when I looked at that, I said, whoa, this is a Democrat, this is a platform here. What I think we have to do, because the differences are, but where we're not differences, we are all Democrats. We believe that government plays a role in the lives of the people. That is what we have strived for and what we have done day in and day out. And I'm not going to repeat all the programs where government has had a role to make a difference in the lives of working families, middle-class families, and the poor. And that's what we are about. That's what we are for. We are activists. And these are the issues. That's what unites us to move in the various directions that will accomplish these goals to meet the challenges. And whether it's jobs, whether it's the environment, or whether it is healthcare, we should not allow ourselves to be forced into dividing who we are as Democrats.
So we're all wondering why she isn't running, right?
Can I just say something on prescription drugs and trade?
Okay.
For 1 second? Okay, please. I want to know that. Because this is not terribly well known. I don't care where you are on the spectrum on trade. You know, I'm for trade. I don't like the trade agreements. I believe that we put workers at a great disadvantage. And the biggest problem we have today, the economic challenge that we have today, are people in jobs that don't pay them enough. But what you need to do is to understand this. This is a giveaway. There's a piece in the trade agreement that is a giveaway to the pharmaceutical industry.
You're talking about the new...
I'm talking about the patent exclusivity.
Yeah.
Biologics, drugs, mostly cancer drugs, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. 2/3 of the drugs for Medicare are biologics. There is a 10-year patent exclusivity, which means that it locks in those high prices over the next 10 years. Second, they are going to expand the definition of biologics, which means that something that has a patent now for 5 years, 7 years, will go to 10 years. That will drive up domestic prices on prescription drugs. Overarching is that once that is written in stone, we cannot change our laws or this law, because then we are in violation of an international trade agreement. It happened to us on country of origin labeling. I fought for country of origin labeling, bipartisan, 2008 Farm Bill. We said pork, beef, poultry coming into the country had to have the country of origin labeling on it. We passed it, great. We were taken to the courts by Mexico and Canada. We lost every appeal, the final appeal, where then we were going to see increased tariffs. In a nanosecond, the Congress overturned country of origin labeling. So you need to know this, as I say, because it doesn't get the light of day in terms of what's going to happen with prescription drugs if this piece would go into effect. I don't believe it belongs in a trade agreement. And again, whether or not you're for the trade or rules of origin or any of the other things, understand this, and please get the word out about this, that this should not be a part of this agreement. So right. Sorry to take that moment.
We got the message. No, we got it. Yeah. Okay, we have a microphone here, show of hands, whatever. Who's first? Where do we start? All the issues we talked about here?
Don't be shy.
Right. That's right. Don't be shy. She's not.
Hi, my name is Melody Tan. I'm from Texas, where I volunteered on a bunch of long shot campaigns. I'm curious about your thoughts of when primary challenges are merited or strategic, and what the balance is between preserving experience in Congress and bringing in new voices and new perspectives. And I'm thinking of all of this in light of the DCCC's essentially effort to blackball vendors who work with primary challengers, which would mean we wouldn't have people like Ayanna Pressley or AOC in Congress.
Yeah, you know, look, I think it's a democratic process. You take your chances. You primary. That's the Democrat. That's what our democracy is. You know, as I said, those folks last year thought that they would want to primary me. Then it was going to be my responsibility. And I'll tell you what you know what I did. I took it very, very seriously. I believe you have to take it seriously. In our Connecticut convention system, I have 25 towns. It's the 25 town committees. They give you the endorsement. I visited them. I spoke to every single delegate at the convention that was going to the convention. I was, you know, on the phone, wrote letters, did all of that. And when it came down to, you know, what my primary opponent, honestly, what it came down to is he had his own, the only delegate support he had was his own vote in going to a convention. Because, yeah, I locked it up, okay? You know, but it took work. It took time and effort. So if somebody wants to primary, you know, I think that's where our democracy lives and breathes. I don't think you can blackball or you know do that. I just don't think that's right.
Okay. Question over here. There we go.
Yeah. My name's Kevin Killeen. The DCCC question was a good one. I want to ask about Joe Biden. And I'm a trade union member, and my local probably has more African American women than the rest of the country combined. But there is kind of a street harassment culture, you know, among union people and old school people like Joe Biden. Is getting back to your opening, is it hard to teach old dogs new tricks?
Well, look, let me just put it in this context. First of all, I do know the vice president, and he's a very, very good friend. I'll just tell you this vignette. My mom passed away 2 years ago at 103 years old. He was in Ireland, and he picked up the phone, and he called me because he had met her. And she, when his son was living in, my mother was in politics. She was on the city council. And when his boy moved into the neighborhood, my mom, and she did this for everyone, it wasn't even about Joe Biden. She went to visit the new family that was coming in. This was her brand of politics. This is what she did. This is what she taught me. And I come from New Haven, Connecticut, which has the best pizza in the world. Don't eat pizza in Washington, D.C. Anyway, but the best pizza, and she brought pizza, you know, and he'll tell that story. So good friends. I would just say about what we're thinking about what's going on now is, look, if individuals feel that, if these young women feel that their space was violated in any way, and there was any course of discomfort, that is real, and it's legitimate, and they have every right to express that and be clear about it. I think that represents progress in dealing with women and equality and justice, etc. I think the vice president's response, where he said it was not his intention, but if he did cause that discomfort, he wanted to listen, he would listen respectfully. I think that was a very, very appropriate response. Now, I think he needs to, and I believe that he will, make clear that it was not his intention. But it's when you are tactile, when you're this, I greeted Bill Press tonight with a big hug, that's, so forth. But I think it's important that the legitimacy of the discomfort, expressing it, and being listened to, and also that then you have to learn that if that is going to really get in the way of people's comfort level with you, that has to be addressed, and I think the vice president will address it.
I want to make it clear, I did not feel uncomfortable with the hug tonight. Yeah, thank you for the hug. Do you, I think your answer, I just want to pinpoint it. There are, both of the women who came forward said that this should disqualify Joe Biden from running for president.
I don't believe that. I honestly do not. I do not believe it should disqualify him from running for president.
Questions before right over here, please.
Hi, I'm Nancy Lytell.
What?
You think it does? Yeah, no, that's.
Because I live with it. It's LGBT women. It's like your name is on the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
You have to put up with comments. It's like
I
think it does this more.
Okay.
You need to say that trade union
sorry,
rights are human rights. They got to practice. They can't selectively put what are human rights.
Yeah.
Question asked, answer given.
But I these are differences, and I respect your views.
Please, yeah.
Hi,
Nancy?
I'm Nancy Lytell.
Nancy, yeah.
I have a real concern about the medicine and generics.
Yes.
I've been doing a lot of work in the last 9 years, and I find that the medicine, for one thing, you cannot trace it like you would your vegetables. You cannot trace from where it was manufactured or made and coming in here.
Sure.
When you have a higher generic, it is now almost impossible, and it doesn't matter if it is the best thing for you. And so I'm wondering whether or not your committee is looking into all of this.
I also sit on the Appropriations Committee. I sit on the Agriculture Subcommittee, which has jurisdiction over the Food and Drug Administration. And I think you raise a very, very interesting point. I get concerned about some of the products that come, and I'll say particularly from China, stuff that comes from overseas, that gets to be part of our of a drug, the coating or whatever it is. I think we need to have much more of an oversight on that issue. I also do believe that if the FDA has approved a drug, for instance, we talked today a lot about the drugs are cheaper in the UK, in Canada, Australia, and we pay at a much different price here. But if those drugs were to, you could have access to those drugs, my view is they have to be FDA approved and have that seal of approval before they can beyond the market to safeguard. But I am concerned, not only concerned about the what may be coming in from overseas with regard to drugs. I get very, very concerned. I spent a lot of time on the issue of food safety because we do not inspect but probably 1% of the food that comes from overseas. And I think that is at risk as well as what you're talking about.
DAW are not even on it. Now that to me, I find really inexcusable.
We should talk some more about that. I would like. That's good. No, information is good, and I do sit on the subcommittee. Actually, I think tomorrow, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, the FDA, is coming before the Agriculture Subcommittee.
Yeah. A question here. I wanted to get your take, if I can. You mentioned gun safety. I mean, coming from Connecticut, I mean, no state has been maybe impacted more. I mean, not just Connecticut, but we all think of Sandy Hook and the trauma there that we're still dealing with. And we saw New Zealand with this horrific mass murder down there, and within 3 days they had passed national legislation to respond. And here we are so many years after Sandy Hook and Parkland, Florida, and Orlando and Las Vegas, and we can't do anything.
Well, you know,
that must really be frustrating.
You know, it's true. And I saw one, I guess, not, it wasn't a poster, but it was commentary on New Zealand. It says, you know, this is the face of leadership. You know, and you know, in many respects, that's, you know, that's true. Sandy Hook. Look, we lose 40,000 people a year.
Gun violence.
Gun violence. And it's, you know, interestingly enough, it's mostly suicide versus homicide. And on the suicide side, it's veterans, and most of the suicides are committed with a gun. And I had I got that from veterans groups. I'm just not, you know, making it up. To think, look, again, I'll go back to where we first started. I was part of the cabal that did the sit-in on the floor of the House, along with John Larson and Catherine Clark and David Cicilline, and above all, John Lewis.
John Lewis.
Above all, you know, at the center of it. And we did not tell the leadership what we were doing. We did not, you know, because, you know, someone would have said, you can't do it. Well, we were going to do it. And we did. And for the first time for myself, I felt as if we were on our feet, that we were actually doing something. When you think about our inability to be able to get a vote on the floor of the House, until 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, on passing universal background checks. You know, I will be straight out with you. I am for banning assault weapons, the high-capacity magazines. And when I told you 20 years and an inability to do research, that's the power of the lobby. That has got to be broken. And, you know, I watched the youngsters, the Parkland youngsters. And my view of the Parkland youngsters were, you know, if you can't follow them, get out of their way. You know? But look, and you think, you know, look at the father from Sandy Hook who just committed suicide, you know? You live with this forever. And these two young women who committed suicide. That was leadership that was demonstrated, and people coming together in New Zealand to say no. And it's the kind of thing that has to happen here. Yeah.
Okay, there, please. Yeah.
I had two questions.
Sure.
Do you have the mic?
One, how we're told.
Could you speak into the mic? So
yes, is that better?
Close as you can.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
We're told that things will change when we as citizens speak out.
Yeah.
But my first question is what as a congresswoman, what matters to you more, the voices you hear from lobbyists or the multiple phone calls or the multiple emails you get from organizations whether they be good organizations or
Right.
different organizations, or how do we as individual citizens really make a difference anymore?
You do.
Because that's frustrating. The second part of my question is, how do you feel about the district's position in this democracy?
You know, representation. Representation. I came to the Congress with Eleanor Holmes Norton. We were elected in the same year. Elected in the same year. And with somebody with, you know, with her background and her credentials and her commitment and values, is a, I'll answer this question first. Her voice, you know, and her vote is critical. And I have a 14-year-old granddaughter who did a whole project, and I had her, she went in to interview Eleanor, who was so gracious and wonderful, because she was doing a paper on the district and representation. So that is, but please don't lose sight of the fact, how do you think we won in November? How do you believe we won? You stood up, others stood up around the country. The, you know, Moms Rising, People Action, you know, the indivisible groups, all of the groups
Run
that
for something. All of these groups.
And they had people running for office. You know, all the women who were running for office. Someone in my staff said to me, "Oh my God, well, women are going to run against one another." Yes, we came full circle. But I'll just tell you for myself. We get 20 people. Let me say 20 people in my district office. District Director Jennifer picks up the phone. She says, "Rosa, we have 20 people here, and this is what they care about." So we have to care about what they care about. I often tell people who come to Washington to lobby members here, you know, fine, come. It's wonderful. Go to your district office and let them know why you are there. And that is the way. You should call, you should write. It makes a difference. And I will tell you, and we were just talking about the gun issue, when there is the view by members who serve that they are politically at risk if they do not vote for gun safety, whatever it is, that is when you will watch them turn. You know, look, I listened to Senator Murkowski, and I listened to Senator Collins when we did the Affordable Care Act, where they both stood up and they said, I've heard from thousands of people in my state, and I cannot vote to repeal and to replace. It makes a difference. It makes a difference. So don't feel powerless.
We need representation.
Well, yes, but you know, hey, well, look, you do. I understand that, and that's honestly something that we care about as a Democratic Party. There's just one other thing. You have friends all over the country. You're all part of networks all over the country. You know, go to your friends, get them to get 10, 15 people in a room, and you know, they're all together on this. Make that trip to the member of Congress's office. Talk about it. You know, we're not powerless in engaging. I'm sorry, sir. Yes, you had.
I want to find out if Doe Norton will be given the full vote in the committee as a whole. Is she happy for when Democrats?
Yeah, look, I'm sure that's where the direction that we would. I'm to be honest with you, I haven't seen or heard anything about that at the moment, but we did that in the past. We will continue, you know, I'm sure we'll go down that. And you know what? Eleanor is no shrinking violet. She is wonderful. Yes.
That was exactly my question is, does DC ever have a snowball's chance in hell of becoming a full member of the Congress?
You know, I never give up on things. I mean, really, I think my 103-year-old mother said to me, never take no for an answer and never give up. So, you know, I can't calculate it for you. But look, if we can go back to where we were, if we can, you know, start that moving, if we can get Democratic Senate and a Democratic president, and we can turn some things around here that gets us through. You know, I think we can. I think we can make it. I think we can make it happen.
I just want to close on a note that you mentioned the leadership in New Zealand. Tell us a little bit about the leadership of Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
You know, look, I know Nancy Pelosi a very, very long time before I came to the Congress. You know, she went to college with Chris Dodd's sister, Martha. So when I was working for Senator Dodd, I got to meet, you know, Nancy, et cetera. And just a quick vignette, when my predecessor, Bruce Morrison, was thinking about running for governor of Connecticut, she would call me up and she would say, "What are you doing? Are you going to run? Are you going to run? Are you going to do this?" I said, "Well, it's not open yet. You know, he's still in the seat." So long and the short of it, she when he did decide to run for governor, she was on the phone. "You got to do it. You got to do it. Let's know what you can do. Let's put it together." So I know her a long time. And I would also say that we have similar backgrounds in this area, though her family participated in politics at the congressional level. Dad was the mayor. My folks, both my mom and dad, served on the city council in New Haven. My mother being the longest serving member of that city council. She served for 35 years. Cool. Not the longest serving woman, but the longest serving member in the history of the city council. So we have similar backgrounds. We have come from similar cultures and ethnicity. Who Nancy Pelosi is, first and foremost, is the core values of who she is and what she's about. And that comes not from serving in the Congress. That comes from being raised as she was. And for me, what I always say, in an Italian Catholic household, where you come and you're there and you're talking about work and family and responsibility and all of those things. You couple that core set of values with someone who has the intellectual capacity and the legislative capacity to take on the toughest issues that we face today. You then move to an understanding of that legislative process and how you navigate it. And what are the coalitions that you can build in order to get to where you need to go. And she is masterful at being able to do that. And for me, the final attribute is she has a spine of steel. A spine of steel. And she is fearless. And I mean that in the best sense. You know, when everyone was attacking her, you know, and she said to people who were running, do what you have to do, but win. Because she understood that we needed to get the majority back. And don't be fooled. What she did when we did win, did she work the caucus on making sure that she was Speaker of the House. We could not have a better Speaker than Nancy Pelosi.
We could not have a better Speaker than Nancy Pelosi. She could not have a stronger fighter at her side than Rosa DeLauro. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What a wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for the work that you do. I don't know what work everyone does, but thank you for whatever you're engaged and involved in, and for your activism. It's really much, much needed, and you need to continue. Thank you.
April 22nd, Justice Stephen Breyer.
Whoa, wow.
Oh, well, you know, just put yourself on the wait list. We'll put up more chairs.
That's right. Put out more chairs.
20 minutes. We were sold out.
Yeah, wow.
Don't give up. Rosa just said don't give up.
Don't give up.
Thank you.